Yes.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
Got it.
All right. So this is going to look very similar to what you have today, right? So everything that you have in core is going to be the same. All your listings will still be transactions. None of that's going to change. We're just going to add basically this tab here that says markets and the tab that has data hub. And then there's a few other things that I'll show you as we get into the platform. I'm not going to show you anything that you've been using for, the last few years you've been working with us.
Thank you.
The markets tab, when you click that, is going to take you to a map. This map is going to basically be what we brought in from the Reese package of data. It's broken up into 5 different regions. So if you zoom in and kind of you get into the region that you guys are going to be located in, it zooms into that, and it's going to, basically it's called the Southern Atlantic region. And you can see all of these dots you're looking at. These are multifamily markets. If you look up at the top right hand, you have the different ability to select between the different asset classes, right? So you can see all the ones we have. Now, I will tell you that dependent upon the size of the market and how much data is being collected in that market is going to drive how much of these are available. So, for example, affordable housing, I'm going to zoom in here to your area. So as I get a little bit closer, you're going to kind of see here's Charlotte right here. Let me get out, move in, Greensboro. So you'll see up here you have multifamily. If I go to example of affordable housing, you can see how those markets are less just because we don't have enough data in certain markets. We do have that here in this area, so we consider this, of course, y'all's market in the area. So as you pick these, you can choose between the asset classes. You have access to this data all across not only the state but the country. So if you wanted to go down and look at what's going on in Charlotte or Raleigh, you can go do that as well if you're doing business in one of those markets. Or if you're licensed in another state, you can go up into Virginia and South Carolina, any surrounding area. So this is nationwide. You have access to this information. So when you're satisfied with whatever market you're looking at or whatever asset class, over here to the right, we're going to have some key performance indicators. You'll hear me say KPIs. That's what that stands for. We just released the Q2 information. So just so you have an idea, when the quarter ends, so when June 30th came, it takes us about a month to get all of these numbers completed and all the numbers and calculations ran, because again, we're doing about 12 asset classes across 275 markets. Each of these dots is considered a market, and then within that, collectively, depending on the market you're in, we might have 4 submarkets, right? Breaking that city up into 4, or some cases you might have 20. Just depends on how big that city is. We have about 3,000 submarkets. So it takes us about a month to run these numbers. So the Q2 numbers were just published. So these are the numbers we're looking at retail for the effective rent, which is 1857 per our numbers across the region. So when you want to come into your market, you just click that dot. The KPIs are going to change, and it's going to zoom in. It's going to show you the area that we're tracking. And then you're going to be looking at this information. And then basically you're going to hit right down here on this button that says the market. And then we're going to start looking at all of these different calculations. So this is the overview tab. So these are going to roughly be the numbers. It's going to talk about asking rent and vacancy trends. You can change that between yearly, which is our default, to quarterly. You can change the different subtypes here if you want, and you can change the timeline. So the 2015 is going to be our default going back. If that's too far, just click in here, change it to whatever you want. If you want to come up to 2019 before we started with COVID, just click that, and then you can kind of see that through the COVID time period. And then we're also going to give you projected numbers. So we do have a whole bunch of economists that are on our staff, and they're looking at this information to determine what they think this particular property type, this asset class, is going to do in your market over the next 4 to 5 years. So when 27 comes about, this will be pushed out to 2031. And if you just hover your mouse across this, you may not be able to see the box, but it's kind of telling you a collective rent for the area, the vacancy, and then it's going to compare that, in this case, to the region that you're in, which is the Southwest, which is the 2 lower numbers. So it's kind of telling you where you guys sit compared to that big region of those 7 or 8 states. And then as you scroll down, You're going to have some different numbers here. This is just, it's the same thing. It's just a chart here you're looking at. And then these are going to be some scenarios. So you can all imagine what this right here was. This was COVID, where everything just fell out of the bottom. And you're going to see this pretty much in every asset class. But then you can see it's kind of going up. These scenarios here, as you can, down here at the bottom where you see the legends down here, the S2 and S3, which are going to be these two, these are potential scenarios of what could happen again if like another COVID were to come. So those are just, again, calculations. You have absorption trends. Again, you can change these numbers up here. You can download all this information specifically from this one particular section. Then you have construction information that you can look at from a 1, 3, and a 5-year history. So you just scroll across to get to 5. And then quarterly construction and absorption, and then new construction. Now we do have an entire section of new construction. So I'm going to go back up to the top. And I'm going to move left to right. So you see we have a new construction tab right here. The performance tab is going to get more specific as far as those were general terms, numbers we were looking at. So you have timelines and how far we go back. So you can see this has been tracked since 1970. This is benchmarking you against the region and the US. And then you're going to have your asking rent distribution. So these are going to be the ranges you can see down here where the asking rent ranges are and where they fall within how many properties are within that. And then your vacancy distribution here as well. And then again, you can just hover across that to get an idea. And then again, you're just going to move from one section to the next. The executive briefing is an economist. This was just recently posted in June of this year, as you can see here. This is one of our economists on staff who's looking at this market as a whole. So we're looking at the Greensboro, Winston-Salem, High Point market. And this is what this economist's thoughts are about the overview. Again, we're looking at retail. So what his or her position is on retail, competitive inventory, and then an outlook. In larger markets, like if I were to be in Charlotte, you would have a what we call the insight. It would be right between these two tabs. That's going to give you a little bit more analysis across the board on all the different main asset classes. So because we don't have as much information in this market as we do in Charlotte, our smaller tier 2s and tier 3s markets, we just don't capture that type of information. It's going to be more of your tier 1. The new construction is right here. So we do have a whole team that tracks this. They track it, as you can see here, from the proposed status. So when these are being presented to the local authorities to get approvals, once all that approval is done and then it moves forward, it'll go to under construction and then completed. So we track all this information. We do have access to Planet Labs. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. It's a big company that has tons of satellites up in space, and they basically watch the U.S. the globe, the whole globe every day. They have shots from it every day. So what we do is when we see something go into under construction, where we actually see machinery gets dropped on site and they start clearing for the pad site, we will then change the status from proposed to under construction because we know something is going on. And once we do that, it's assigned internally to a team, and then they'll track that as it moves forward. And we'll kind of take different shots of it as it goes through the process. We'll create a record for that in our database. So you guys are familiar with the 8.8 million records we have, which says, hey, this is an office building, retail, whatever. So when that land goes from, here it is just dirt, now all of a sudden something's being proposed, we want to go find out what that is. Is it a retail, an office, industrial? So a lot of times we'll reach out to the developer and find out what it is. And then if it's an industrial, then we'll change that property record from land to industrial, find out what the subcategory is, whether it's R&D, if it's warehouse, whatever the case might be. And then we'll update the record in our database as it's going through that entire process under construction. And so this is just the sub-markets that we have and how those are being broken down as far as those particular statuses. And then we track new construction, which will provide that. So y'all may know some of these areas and kind of the sizes and when they were completed and things like that. And then occupancy at completion. So these are all tracked by that particular team. Transactions, you guys have access to all of this information today. Again, transactions are put in by brokers like yourselves, whether it's for sale, for lease. We do buy transactions via First American. They gather those from all of the county seats. And when that information is basically completed and the transaction is done and it's published, we'll find out that it was sold. If it's a disclosure state, we'll get the sales price. So we'll attach that to the transaction. Any deed information that may have been disclosed, we'll attach those documents. And then we'll also, at that time, we have an entire team that will find out who the legal seller and true seller was and who's the legal buyer and the true buyer, meaning LLCs are going to be the legals, and then the true would be an actual person, like who's the owner of that LLC. Sometimes it may be a corporation, so we'll provide things like the CEO's name or the CTO or CFO. If it's a legal owner, we'll provide you that individual's name. So we'll capture all of that at the time of the sale and make sure that we attach that to each transaction. We don't do that on the lease side because that's much harder to come by. A lot of brokers choose to not share that information, but we can track down the sell stuff from the local, from the local authorities as far as the courthouses and things. Transaction here in volume. So this is what's going on in the market. And then these are a bunch of the transactions that have happened. These are going to be by the top 10. And then down here, the most recent, you can see the dates. So for example, whatever building's at 605 Akron Drive, looks like it just closed a couple of weeks ago. If you click on this link, it'll actually take you to the transaction and you can see all that transactional data. Now, you guys have access to all that today. This is just stacking this for you in a top 10 by size and by most recently. But you can go over there to the transactions and you can search by timelines and find the exact same stuff. The demographics, you have access to demographics right now around a 1, 3, and a 5 mile radius or a 3, 5, and 10 minute drive time. These are just demographics that are more common. You would see like in Esri or things like that, other services that you might use. These are going to be demographics of the market, like in this case, the Triad area. So as opposed to being demographics around an individual property, this is just what's going on in the whole of the market itself. So very similar to what you may be accessing today through other sources. Climate risk, not going to spend a lot of time on that. That's something that we offer. It's usually sold to banks and insurance companies. This is just telling you what your highest risk is right now, which is heat stress. And then the submarkets, these are the submarkets that we have this area broken up into. And then I want to show you one other thing. I'm going to go back out just a little bit because it's nice to see these numbers from a holistic standpoint. But I have a lot of times when brokers will ask, okay, that's great, but what does that mean? Like, where's this data coming from? So I'm going to click right here where it says search properties.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, but and I'm OCD, but looking at that map, we actually go further south. Is this just like a demo? Because we do go Trinity, Archdale, Thomasville, Randleman. We go further down, and Lexington actually.
I can barely hear anything you're saying.
Okay, I'm sorry. The map is not showing our whole territory. You've got it stopped like at Archdale, but we actually go down to Lexington. Winston-Salem has Lexington, and we go down as far as Thomasville. So I don't think the
down
map,
like right here.
Yeah, so where the map stops, we're all the way down there.
These are the markets that we're tracking from a holistic standpoint. That's what I was going to show you because, as I said, the numbers that we're looking at right here. Let me move my video back up because I had to move it down a little bit. My monitor. Let me show you this. I think this will answer your question. So these are just big holistic numbers as a market. I'm going to click this button right here, and it's going to redirect me to the map that you're used to seeing. And so this is going to kind of tell you that we're tracking those numbers are coming from 5,900 properties. So that's what we're looking at across all those numbers I was showing you. So as a broker, it's nice to know what's going on as a whole, but you're going to be working with a client that wants to know a real specific area of town. Like, okay, that's great, but what's happening down in Thomasville or, wherever you're wanting to look. So the easiest way to do that is going to be with this analyze button right here at the top. So the best way to accomplish that is I'm just going to clear out these 5,900 properties. And this is going to show you all the numbers that you're used to seeing. The colors are spread across the different asset classes. So I'm going to select for sale and for lease. and that's going to allow me to come in here and see the actual active inventory. And then I'm going to zoom in down to where you're talking about and see what's available down in this market. So maybe I want to take a look at retail. So I'm going to select retail. We'll see what kind of retail you have down here. At this point,
Okay, I
the
stopped my
easiest way to,
video. Shh,
y'all
sorry.
can't see my screen?
I can.
No,
I
I
can.
meant to mute myself. I'm sorry.
Hang on, let me go back. Uh, what's it say here? The meeting is being recorded. Got that. It shows I'm sharing. You can't see it?
Yeah, I can see it fine.
We can see it. Her video went out. I think that's what she was saying.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can see
okay.
it.
So I'm just using the map to zoom in, and all I did was select the property type, right, retail, and the different for sale and for lease. So you can change that whatever you want. And then the easiest way is to come over here and draw shapes and just draw an area of whatever it is that you're looking for and apply that. So now we're going to be looking at 24 listings that are inside 17 properties. So because I have lease selected, we're probably going to have a couple of leases, multiple leases inside one building. So once you're done, you hit analyze, and it's going to go in and it's going to analyze this information at a smaller data set than the 5,900 listings that we were looking at earlier, right? So from here, you can see the 17 properties. This is how much square footage those consist of. 3 under construction. The average square foot is this, built, so on and so forth. And again, you're going to have some very similar type of data down here at the bottom. And this is going to kind of just specifically look at these 17. Now you can come up here and look at the lease listings, and it's going to break that information down for you. So it's going to give you a little bit better of an idea what these properties are doing. So the average cost per foot across the lease listings, so these 8 properties that are inside this particular area that I've selected, that's the average cost per foot. And then if you go to sell, because there were a couple of sell properties, this is the average asking price per foot, so $187 a foot. So you can look at those numbers and kind of get an idea of what's going on in that particular area, and you can download that information here in a spreadsheet or a PDF. And then if I go back to the search, what I can do then is clear that, and then kind of, just to give you an example, I can scroll out
Something.
and then I can reset my specific parameters and ask for retail again. And then maybe I zoom in over here somewhere, just a different area of town. If you're looking in this part of town, do something similar. I'm just going to go look at the lease. And these are 1836 a foot. So you can see the gap and the difference between where I was looking down at Thomasville. I think that was 1303 a foot roughly. And up here on this part of Winston-Salem is 1836. This is going to be something that you would use, I would think, more frequent, because it's going to give you the ability, again, I'm going to scroll back out and clear this. This is going to give you the ability to select whether you want for sale or for lease or both, the asset class you want. So maybe you want to look at office. Maybe now you want to go to Greensboro and look up here on the north side. So I'm just kind of showing you again how to do it, how easy it is. You just draw the area you want, apply that. It's now going to focus on these 38 listings, and then you hit the analyze button. Now we're looking at what's going on in this area, and then you can click lease, and it's telling you roughly the cost per foot across all these properties in those 31 listings. So it's 31 listings inside 15 properties. So again, that means there's multiple leases inside a single building. They're averaging $22.13 a foot for office listings in that part of town. So this is going to give you a little bit more analysis on something that'll be more specific versus when you're on the markets tab. It's just looking across that entire area, and it's kind of just giving you an average of what's going on amongst buildings that are in different parts of town. Where, because you live there, and you work in this business, some parts of town are trading at $5 a foot more or whatever. This is going to give you more inline numbers to the area that you're interested in.
Lisa.
Questions on any of that before I move on?
I think
Yes,
Adrian.
I do. So, again, I'm not as familiar with this as y'all are. I'm just beginning, but so the way I'm understanding it, when it was purple, like, and it had the default area or whatever, where our statistics, I guess that's where our statistics come from when you do Shane, when you were doing our default area, whatever, and she was saying it stopped in Archdale.
Right?
Doesn't that, I mean, because like my husband does Thomas, I mean, Thomasville, Randleman, those are very, very common for him. So doesn't that, I could be wrong, but does it affect the statistic numbers or the,
It would.
I
So
mean, doesn't that, I mean, shouldn't it go low? I don't know, Lisa, what I'm trying to ask.
I know what you're saying. You're saying, shouldn't there be a larger coverage area further down to that part of the city or that part of the state?
I mean, it's not, it's like
Yes.
Archdale and then like Thomasville is like literally one exit down the highway. And then Lexington is one exit down the highway. And Lexington's fine, but Thomasville, Trinity, Randleman, all of those are areas that my husband, I mean, has huge buildings listed
Yeah, and so
and
if you can,
leased.
like, if you're seeing here the purple area you're talking about, so I just brought it back up. So again, these are Reese submarkets. This is what you're looking at here. These boxes that are covering certain parts of town based on the data that they've been tracking for quite some time. And so one of the things that our internal team is working on doing is trying to do the best we can to refigure some of this to capture some of these areas. Like you can see, I'm on multifamily and it goes down into the Thomasville area. So if I were to go to office, it's going to kind of show you it's not encompassing that. So those are going to be these larger numbers. If I go down to industrial, warehouse distribution, it's covering a larger area. Because you guys have a lot of industrial buildings in there, so that's a bigger area that we're covering. So we're looking at redoing some of these submarkets to where they're more similar to where they're covering the same territories. But right now, when you're looking at the market tab and you're looking at this shaded area of purple, that's what we're looking at. So when I click this button down here and I move into all this detailed information, that's the properties that we're looking at inside this market. So these submarkets, well, the markets based on the asset class you're looking at are going to vary based on historically what Reese has been tracking. That's why I wanted to show you when you go back to the main map that you're used to seeing. So when I click this button and come back over here, this is where you're probably going to want to do the bulk of your analysis. Because again, when you're talking to an individual client, they're going to want to know specifics of a specific part of town for a specific asset. And that's where you can either search inside this or you can clear that and you can search outside of that market. Because now you'll be able to switch this to industrial and it'll show you even more information that you'll be able to select at that point down here around the area that you're talking about.
And when you clicked, I didn't realize, like I said, I'm brand new at this. So when you clicked industrial, it did have a line that came down and caught Randleman. You know what I'm saying, guys? Like it did. I didn't realize that. I'm sure.
Yeah. So
Yes,
now
there are
you can
not
see there's
offices in
a big
Randleman like there are
concentration right here.
warehouses.
So like there's a
Say that
bunch
again.
in Thomasville that you're
Yeah.
kind of talking about, and then there's a
Yeah.
bunch in between Thomasville and High Point.
Yes.
So my point being is the markets tab is going to give you a larger overview of the analysis of the data we're tracking. This button here is going to give you your more direct numbers that you're probably going to want to share with a client because those are going to be more realistic numbers to the part of town that your client might be interested in either buying or moving or whatever the case may be when you're looking at, because you can search for data outside of the markets that are in the market tab. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. I appreciate that.
Sure. So the market tab is great if you want to look at, certain markets again at a very high macro level. But if you want to get down to a smaller number, it's best to just come to this map, pick again what you're looking for, your for sale, for lease, or both, the asset class. You can even, get further descriptive with if you just want warehouse or distribution, whatever the case may be. Then it's always best if you basically draw an area around the data that you want to really focus on, apply that, because right now there's 260 listings I'm looking at on these map, all these blue dots. When I apply this inside the area I've drawn now, I'm down to 108. So I kicked out 150 listings. Now I can go to the analyze and I can analyze these specific 150 listings and get a really good idea of the data and what's going on, because this is information you guys are sharing with us, right? This is you're putting the listings in, information that the groups we're working with in the state are sharing. So these are numbers that you're putting in here, and so this is us taking that, and now across these 68 lease listings, the average asking rate right now is $930. Now that's going to vary. Some will be more, some will be less. Some are going to have different variables that are part of that. Just the variables that come with buying a lease property, or at least in an industrial property, as same with CAM expenses and office and all that stuff. But that's just going to give you a better overview of the local area. All right, so I'm going to show you a couple of other things. I'm going to zoom out, and let me just come up here, and I'm going to type in the state. All right, so what I'm going to show you now is going to be the loan data that we have. So right here in the loans tab. So we have all these different sources we gather loans from. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that's all public record information. So I can click those and kind of show you where all these properties are that we have loans on. So we have 2,900 properties where we have actually loan information on. And you can click on any one of these and pull it up, go to view details. There's a loans tab down here that you can click on, and it's going to share whatever loan information you have. This is going to be just general things that you're going to see, these loans are. These are going to, again, this is public record information. So it's kind of sparse in what you have access to. The big data information that's going to be of value to you is going to be the CMBS data. Now, there's going to be fewer of those, but the data that's going to be part of this is going to be significant. So I'm going to zoom in. Let me go to your area up here. And I'm just going to grab a property. And we'll go again to view details and then the loans tab. And this is what's coming directly from the servicing organizations, the banks and things that are servicing this loan. This is not Moody's information. We do work with all of these banks, and this is data that we get from them. So we thought, well, let's just package it up with the pro service and share that. So this particular building right here currently has a $4 million loan on it, 5.53 interest rate. It's a pretty good LTV on it. And then this is going to be all kinds of detailed information on what's going on with this particular loan. So you can see what their payment is. They are current, which tells me they've made a recent payment. And so that'll show you that type of information. You'll come down here and you can see when it's maturing. So they got a couple of years on it. And then if there's any other type of data we have here on the loan performance information, and then we have financial summaries and revenue and expense data tied to these properties. And then the valuation summary. So again, this is all coming from the actual servicer of this, which is going to be, in this case, L&R Partners is the one that's the special servicer, and the master on this is Midland Loan Services. So you can go in and you can look at all this information. Now, for a broker, where this might be valuable for you is, again, to scroll out to the state, and under loans, you can actually look to see who's 90 days or more delinquent. And it's going to show you that. Not a lot, so that's good. You can go in and select one of these. And then again, you have to go to view details, and then you go to the loans tab. And it's going to show you these guys are 121 days past their last payment, and what, basically what their current balance is. And as you scroll down, what you're going to see is the notes. So this is coming directly from the servicer. So you can see this building is going into an REO. Probably already has gone into an REO. So it tells you whatever the servicer has written about this is what their notes are going to be. And we get you can see this just came in about 3 weeks ago. So this was just updated 3 weeks ago, coming from the servicer on this. and then you can have the financials and all that. So this might be something where you see that they're in an REO status, they're pretty far behind. It says right here, workout strategy, REO. If you have a client that's interested in, what is this, office building in this area that is, their current loan of 29 million is 77% of the value of the property. Maybe you can get that at a good deal. The bank just wants to get rid of it. You might be able to go in and buy this at a pretty good clip. Then you also can come in here and you can do something very similar where you can come over here and look at the interest rates and the maturity dates. Oops, maturity date. Maybe you put 12, next year, and then you want to see a max interest rate of 4%. And we'll see how many of those are out there. So then you can come in here and see all the loans that are maturing in the next little over a year. So I'll just open up this one. So this one is maturing by the end of the year. This is in a portfolio. So this is one of 8 properties on this 34 million bucks. And so this one is coming due November the 11th next year. So a little over a year from now. And they currently have a 4.35% interest rate. So this might be a situation where you go back to this individual and potentially, especially if they're in 26, they're not going to get a 4.35. So this might be a chance where you can go in and find out what you might be able to do in order to reach out and help them either sell the property or increase their rents in this particular building to offset the increased interest. Now, once you have that information, another thing you can do is change this map view to table view. And under edit columns, scroll down and make sure that you have all this true owner information selected, which he does. And you can save all that stuff. You guys have access to all this today, to those columns, not the true owner stuff. And then you just scroll across until you see the true owner. So here's the true owner information. So like for this particular building, the true owner is Chris Carter, and here's his phone number. And for this building, the true owner is Denise Trosh, and there's her phone number, so on and so forth. Now, a lot of these are going to be, LLCs and corporations, but we try to pierce that corporate veil. So what we do is we basically, y'all may do this too. We go to the Secretary of State, and we have about 30 people that do this every month. Right now, we're at about a 50% coverage, getting all the true owner information. We do it for every transaction when that hits the courthouse. And we're backfilling these additional records to make sure that we'll have true owner on every record. And once we do that, then we'll just update them once they sell. And then we'll know that we're, 100% covered. So you can see we have some gaps in here where some of these properties don't have a true owner. But you can see we have a pretty good amount of them that do. Now, these are for the loans. I just happened to keep the loans up that I had selected. So this would be a good way for you to track down the owner and see if they're going to sell or if they need to increase their rents and how you reach out to them. Now, if the LLC is put into done by an attorney, sometimes the attorneys will do that, and his or her name is shared on the actual document that's filed with the state. There's nothing we can do to pierce that. So that's just what the owner wanted to do, is have the legal, their legal person on there. But in most, you don't see that happen a lot, but it could. So I just wanted to show you how to do that and how to access that information. Now I'm going to go back to the map view, and I'm going to clear all of this information out, all of the loan data, and just see that we still have for sale and for lease. You can go into these buildings and hit view details, and there's a contacts button right here. And if we have that information, it'll be stored right here. Right. So for this one, we don't have it. That's one of the ones we don't have. But that's where you can find it. The easiest way to do it is what I did. Go in, pick an area of town you're interested in, maybe choose an asset class that you're interested in. Pick a part of town. And just, again, like I was doing, just draw an area around it. Sorry, hit the button. Draw an area around it, hit apply. And then come over to table view. And then it's just easier for you to look at everything here versus having to click on a button and go back to each one. And then you just scroll across the bottom until you get to that area where the true owner information is. And then you can scroll down and look at it from there. And then you can export that stuff. There's an export button right here in the middle. You can export that information. So that's what I wanted to show you guys, which are going to be the new stuff we're adding. The analysis from the Reese application, the way to go in and use the analyze tool to get real specific in areas that you want to look at. Like I drew the map and hit the button here, and then looking at the loan information and then the true owner information is tied to that. So that's what I wanted to share with you from the pro perspective. So questions?
No, not really. I mean, it's great information. I'll agree with that. It seems like that could be a double-edged sword with that having that loan information, because if I'm working for a buyer and I know that owner has missed 3 of his mortgage payments, yeah, kind of gives me some leverage. If I'm a
Yeah,
seller agent, if I have a seller agent and I know my buyer agent, or whoever the buyer is, if they're looking at the same information, kind of it could back you into a corner. You'd have to almost be like, well, that information is not correct. So you'd have to do some finagling there, because that's a lot of, depends on which side you're looking from.
yeah, absolutely. I
You know,
mean, you're 100% right. The whatever side of the coin you're on, it's going to be potentially good or bad if you're selling or potentially helping to buy it.
yeah.
But all that
And then you,
information that's coming directly from the bank. We're not getting that from any place. We're not making that stuff up. It's just the relationships that we have with these banks that we work with, because all the banks use the Moody's, not all of them, but a lot of them use the Moody's platform to do their risk analysis for the requirements they have to do with the federal government. And so we have all of that data. So when we got acquired a few years ago, and I was looking at all this stuff, when we were first digging into the Moody's information, I went to some of the senior leadership and I'm like, why aren't we sharing this to the brokerage community? I mean, they can use true owner data, they can use bank information, they can use this market analysis. So for about a year and a half, we were working on basically taking everything from the old Reese platform, which has been around again for a long time. And we built all of that into the Catalyst platform, which is what you're seeing today. This is what we built at Catalyst. So we integrated all that information, and we're actually shutting the old Reese system down by the end of the year. So we've taken all of their stuff and built it into here. So a lot of the banks and stuff are going to have a version of this service. It just won't have the broker tools. So it won't have the ability to add listings and send broadcast emails, needs and wants, all those broker tools that you might use on a daily basis. We stripped all that out, but it does have all the analysis. And one thing I didn't show you was the Data Hub tab. When you come here, this is just you gathering this information and downloading it. So you can pick your different sectors, whatever that is. I call it asset classes, but in here we call it, it's sectors. So in case the major asset classes. So pick whatever sector you want, select it. And then over here, you're going to pick your market. So you would type in, whatever market you want. Just type that in. It's going to pick it up. You're going to drop it over to the right. You can choose submarkets. So if it has submarkets, you can select those if you want to do individual ones. And then once you've done that, you choose your settings, which is going to be the frequency. So monthly, quarterly, I'm just going to say yearly. And then when you come over here, once you select all this, you can say select all, and it's going to pull all of this data. And then you can just download that, and it's just going to drop this into one big massive file. Versus earlier, what I was doing was the individual in the markets tab where you can download each individual component. This is going to let you download it into just one big massive CSV file. So as you can see here, and then at this point, you can go through here and you can edit it whatever you want to with it. So the Data Hub is just downloading tremendous amounts of data sets and taking that data and reviewing it in a spreadsheet, and then sorting it, whatever it is that you want to do with it in order to create your own personal analysis. So that's through that package.
You mentioned something earlier about Charlotte and Raleigh. Those are tier 1 areas, and the Triad, I guess Greensboro is a call it a tier 2 and tier 3, and looking back at those analytic reports, are those I mean, Moody's does a great job with their analytics. Is it just because you're not looking at as many data points, or just there's not as many data points to pull from, or just
Yeah, so you see
how
here we have
confident are
the
you in the
insight.
accuracy of those?
So I pulled up Charlotte, so we have what's called the insight here. So this is going to be another report. This is going to be a more comprehensive version of, and again, it's going to look at each of the different asset classes and give you a little synopsis and then a final outlook. And so this is telling you down here, when this was done and all the data that's being analyzed. And then this is the actual person that wrote this. So Ricardo Rosas is the economist or data scientist that's doing all of this. Now, as far as the data points you're talking about, so when I come here and I'm looking at these different asset classes like Flex R&D, they have a Flex R&D option here because they just had Flex R&D buildings in their market that we have classified as Flex R&D. You might go, like, for example, if you go down and you want to look at Wilmington, Wilmington's not going to have any Flex R&D. I mean, they might have 2 or 3 buildings down there, but not enough for us to analyze that to give you decent, analytics, right? Because there's just not enough of them. So when you go through and you look at these different asset classes, hospitality, for example, it's going to show you, you can see across the United States, these are all the markets where we have data to be able to provide you decent information about analysis on hospitality. When I zoom in, you can see Charlotte has that, Raleigh has that, but there's nothing in y'all's market. And, it's just showing you what markets we have enough data to calculate numbers of any meaningful results. So that's the different major classes over here. Your multifamily, your office, your retail, your warehouse distribution, those are going to be the 4. Self-storage, probably be a lot across the country with that. So you'll be able to go in and see that. But as I mentioned earlier, and you guys have self-storage up in your market, as I mentioned earlier, you have access to this information all across the United States of America. So if you want to go see what's going on just for giggles, what's happening out here in, California, you can go look at what's going on in California if you wanted to, or in New York or wherever, Florida, Miami, whatever. So all of these dots are different markets, and you can click on any one of them and see what's going on in those markets that just compare to your area. So all that's available to you.
All right. Hey Shane, I've got an appointment at 3 o'clock, so I got to run. Thank you again for all your time, and at least I'll call you whenever I'm done here and we can discuss. But that's no great. I mean, always enjoyed it, and thanks a lot, Shane. But I've got to step out. But it was a great
Thanks
presentation. I appreciate the update.
Yep.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Any other questions while I have the screen up?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty familiar with it.
So what you guys, I mean, just in general terms, what y'all think about all that?
We're basically adding the 2 elements of the loan part and the true owner, which is good. That's very good. A lot of times it takes forever to get to a true owner if you're trying to do it yourself. But this would be nice to have that.
It takes a lot of time to get to the true owner information. I mean, you have to go to
Secretary of State to chase the LLC.
yes.
Then
And sometimes there's
multiple.
multiples that you have to flow and walk through. So we have a team that does all of that. So like I said, we're about 5 million records of the 8 point some odd million that we have right now in our database. So we're trying to fill those 3 additional million records with that. And it's a long, laborious amount of time to track that down to get the actual person. Sometimes, like I said, it's a corporation. So you'll see like CEO, CFO, CIO, whatever, to be able to access those individuals. But then when we get the transactions, we will automatically attach that to every transaction. So eventually we're going to have them all, and then it'll just be maintaining the transactions. Those sell properties come through, so we'll stay at 100%. But that's going to take some time. I mean, we're talking probably at least another year at a minimum, if not more, to fill those gaps to get all that stuff done. But it's great information to have, and it saves you a lot of time for having to go track it down.
And it's great to be able to actually go in and circle and draw a specific area and get outside of the big areas that are already mapped just to see what you got. So,
yeah, I've found that to be the easiest when I talk to brokers, when I hear like what they're trying to accomplish. I think going to the area of town or the city that you're interested in, you can type a city in, or you can just draw the area. It's the easiest way to do it because then you're isolating the part of town you want to be in. And then from that point, you can really dig into all the numbers. Like if you're trying to have a tenant that wants to move from one side of town to the other, you can say, well, you can move over here, but it's $7 a foot more than if you go over here, right? If they're cost conscious, right? Or if they want to know, like, I want to go where everyone's moving. Well, demographics say everyone's moving over here, and it's going to blow up in the next 2 years. So you want to get in now before the cost per foot goes up $3 in a year and a half. So let's get you in today. So those are where that analyze tool come in real handy. And then prospecting is when you can use the true owner and the loan information if you want to utilize that.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's really, Lisa, what I wanted to share with your team is just the tools that we have that are, part of the Market Pro. You guys have Market Core today, and we have most of our clients when we do these demos are electing to go with the Pro. From a cost perspective, we're not really charging any more than what we are with the Core. So we just wanted to show you what we have and just let you know that this is where you might want to be. This is I manage all of this within the company, and I've been telling some more of the higher, senior level people, like, let's give the best tools we have to our clients and put more information in front of them to have, so they're not having to go to other sources. Like maybe you have to go to Reonomy to buy the true owner information. Well, if that's what you're doing today, then maybe you could stop paying them and you can use this platform and not have to pay Reonomy hundreds of dollars a year to do that. It's built into this platform.
So far, who in North Carolina, who all is on the Pro already, or that you've talked to that's moving in that direction?
Salem switched to it last year. And then
Charlotte's already on it.
Charlotte just switched to it late last year as well. They're offering Core and Pro. They have both, but I think Pro is pretty much where they're, everyone's switching to that. And then I have a call tomorrow with the Cape Fear board in Wilmington about moving them to Pro. So pretty much,
and again, it's no.
And I have reached out to Mike Barr as well at Greensboro to talk to him and Peter Johnson about maybe them moving over to Pro as well. We want to try to keep you guys all on the same product because y'all are in the same market essentially. So I just haven't had a chance to connect with Mike yet. He hasn't reached back out yet. So, but that's the plan, because to get them to switch over to that. And so Lisa, you have the proposal that I sent you. You can review that as you need to, but I just wanted to show you all the tools and just kind of let you know what's available.